Hello, everyone. We have yet another live stream regarding the ongoing crisis. Today, we have Nikolai Artemenko from Vremya here to answer our questions. Welcome, Nikolai.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone.
We're very happy that you're here and you will share your opinions with us. We really wanted to bring this perspective in. We're quite worried about the ongoing crisis and where it's headed, but we're also worried about the racist comments raising against Russian people. Therefore, we wanted to ask you some questions, but before we move ahead, could you please maybe introduce yourself, what you do at Remya, and what does Remya do in general?
Yes, thank you. The Rema movement is a liberal democratic movement. We based in 19 cities in Russia. Our headquarters in St. Petersburg. Nowadays, we have something about 150 members all over the country. And what we do, we mostly do nowadays different online projects, online schools, seminars for activists all over the country. We develop different democratical projects. One of our most important and famous projects is a website called wearehere.today. It's a nice encyclopedia of the Putin's Russia. In this website, you can check how our country, Russia, developed during the Putin's presidency, what laws were adopted, so why we are here now, where we are. Our movement established in 2018, and we are still not banned in Russia, but as we think it's just in a few maybe months we could be banned as well, because most of the democratic movements in our country unfortunately closed, and activists decided to move the country. But we are still trying to do uh, what we can.
Thank you for that answer. As I understand from that answer, you are in opposition to the current government, and we are seeing a lot of scary videos from people protesting, from journalists. So I wanted to ask, as an opposition in civil society, did you experience anything bad, or did this affect your career or your personal lives?
Yes, actually, a few days ago, I was released from prison. I spent there half of the month because me personally was to the square to protest against uh, this war, and I was detained on the first day of this war, and was spent in the custody in a prison for 14 days. And me, of course, not alone. I was there, and there were also about 300 activists or not activists, just ordinary people who were detained in the first day of the war. And the prisons in our country, in St. Petersburg, Moscow, and all other cities, are not empty. And every day, the new activists or people who simply wanted to say that they are against killing people, they are against war with Ukraine. They are detaining on the streets, and police come to the houses and inspected the houses. And even nowadays in prisons, there are more than 1,000 people just waiting for release. And there is opinion in media, in global media, and also in Ukrainian media that people in Russia, all of them are in favor of this war. Of course, it's not true. There are too many people who really crying because of this terrible war, and continue go to the streets protesting, even if it's dangerous for them, for those lives, for those freedom. And I want to say loudly that we Um, we will we will do this, and we will continue protesting against it. That's all we can do nowadays, unfortunately, because we don't have that power to stop it. We are not in power. We don't have members of parliament because we don't have opposition in Russia, unfortunately. But all we can do now is go to the streets and try to say loudly that we are against. We are against the killing. We are against this war.
Thank you. I was going to ask what was Remia's position, but you already clarified that. The numbers you've given are crazy, and it's very scary. My heart also goes out to those people. Then I'd like to move on to the next question. Do you think there is any Western involvement in this invasion, or do you think this is just a Kremlin talking point? Do you think maybe NATO and the West are ignoring the geopolitical concerns of Russia? What's your stance on that?
Um, my position that if NATO will be involved in this conflict, that will be immediately the Third World War. I really don't want the Third World War, and from the other hand, of course, I don't want Ukraine be completely ruined. The only thing that now should happen is Russian army should immediately stop this, as in Russia called operation, but immediately to stop this war against Ukraine and leave the Ukraine territory. Um, as for the Western integration, NATO integration, I'm really afraid of this because, as I said, NATO is Europe, is United States, and we really don't want the uh, Third World War. And I don't really think what's happening nowadays in the head of in Putin's head, but who knows whether nuclear weapon will be used or not. I'm not sure that it will not be used because a few weeks ago, the idea that war with Ukraine can start, it was like a nightmare. But nowadays we are discussing the nuclear weapon, we are discussing the nuclear bombs, and I really don't know what in the head of these guys. And I think that the European Union should do now is stop financing Russian terrorists who are in power nowadays. So, from the other hand, Europe said that, yeah, Putin come to Ukraine and killing people, but from the other hand, Europe continue buying Russian gas. So we have to choose whether we want to stop it, whether we want to continue business with bloody Russian businessmen. I think that it should be stopped, but without any NATO support.
Thank you. That was a very well-rounded answer. And we've mentioned this belief going around that all Russians are responsible, and you talked about Ukrainian media. Of course, that's maybe partially understandable on Ukraine's part, but as for the rest of the world, do you think all people believe that all Russians are responsible for this because they voted for Putin or they let Putin remain in power? Uh, do you think people think like this? Do you think people are hostile against Russians? What do you think and what do you feel? What's your perception on the subject?
Uh, I don't know for sure, but if we talk about let's call it the middle class, of course, people understand that there are Russians who are in favor and there are Russians who are against. Of course, I know that even in Europe, people know who Navalny is and why this guy is in prison. And actually, today, Navalny is the leader of opposition in Russia, was sentenced for for more 9 years in prison. And I really believe that Europeans and the rest of the world will understand that there is a Putin and there are people who are against them. And I really want to say it loudly that Russians, it doesn't mean Putin at the same time. So there are too many people, as I said, who are really against it, who want to fight against the system, regime, war, and who wants to stop it, who wants to change it. And we are, and there are quite a lot of them. There are really quite a lot of them. And I know a lot of people who, as I said, nowadays in prison and against whom the criminal cases started. And they started just because they was against the war, against Putin regime. For example, me, I'm doing all this fighting things for more than 15 years already, and I met so many beautiful people who now left the country because they simply couldn't fight anymore because it was too dangerous for them. But still, nowadays, still have a lot of them. And please don't think that Russians and Putin are the same. No, it's not true. Of course, there are many of many people in Russia who really support this criminal war. But I believe that because propaganda really washed those brains, and in fact, all of them are good guys. But no, I don't want you and all the other European community compare people for Russia and Putin and put them in the same basket. So we're not the same.
Yeah, that's a definitely understandable sentiment, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. We want to ask if you know anything about whether they freeze the accounts or cancel the SWIFT for regular Russian citizens, or maybe that's just for the rich elite Russians, because there's a lot of information coming in, and we're not based in Russia. So we wanted to ask you, since you're based in St. Petersburg.
We don't have the real problems with the cards with SWIFT. We can use our cards inside Russia. The only problem that we can use it outside, and it's a big problem for those who has the foreign bank accounts, and it's impossible to get money from Russian bank accounts to foreign bank accounts and vice versa. And that's a big that's kind of complicated for those who doing business abroad. For example, I'm a CEO in an IT company, and we have many partners in Europe. And nowadays, we try to find how we can communicate financially with them. So that's an issue. Um, but I understand completely that it's impossible to cut to make sanctions using SWIFT only for the one group of people, and the another group of people will not be touched by this sanctions. But unfortunately, we faced it. Of course, I don't like it, but I understand it's a wartime, and that's not the biggest problem that we have. And when I see the pictures from Ukraine, when I see the hospitals, the kindergartens, the maternity houses that were completely ruined, I understand that our problem with the bank account is not a problem at all. Um, because of the sanctions, many European and American brands left Russia. So many shops closed. We lost like IKEA, McDonald's, H&M, Zara, many others. Nestle today say that they left the country, and we back to USSR. we're back to USSR, and I think that if nothing will be changed in a couple of months, the situation will be really tough, and these brands will not come back, and we'll have to do it by ourselves. And of course, it's a big damage for Russian economy, and all that we were built for the last 20 years were ruined in a couple of weeks. But as I said, compared to Ukraine, what's happening nowadays in Ukraine is just a small, uncomfortable thing. And I really think that I really hope that all this crisis will be finished soon, and all of us will come to Ukraine and help them to rebuild all the cities. For example, as for me, I will come to Ukraine first when these things will be done, and will help them to rebuild the cities. I don't know how I can help, but I will do by myself what I can, to build, to dig, whatever. But I feel myself responsible for this, for all these terrible things.
Well, yeah, they will definitely need help, and we will all be there to help. So, one last question, and then we can wrap up. Do you have any predictions regarding the Russia-Ukraine relations? Do you think this crisis will solve itself soon, or do you think this will go on for a while? What is the climate in Russia currently? What's being talked about?
Uh, I can't give you any predictions because, as I said a few weeks ago, no one in our country can predict the war, and nowadays we have it. I know for sure that until Putin is in power, that there will not be any real changes regarding relations between Russia and Ukraine. Only if we got a new democratic government, if we got a new democratic elections in our country, only when there will be another president, another parliament in Russia, something will be changed and started to change. But of course, we can't say about any warming in our relations with Ukraine until Putin is in Kremlin, until United Russia Party is a ruling party. And yeah, but I really believe, I'm an optimist, and I really believe that soon something will be changed there by themselves, or something will be changed from the streets of Russia, and we got the new democratic elections, new democratic president, and of course will warm relations between Ukraine and Russia. But as I said, until Putin there, nothing will be changed, and unfortunately, it's true.
Yeah, we want peace to take over as soon as possible. So hope keeps us going. Thank you, Nikolai, for joining us today. As I can see, there are no questions in the chat. But if there are any further questions, maybe we can do another stream in the near future. Yeah. And thank you for coming. Thank you for talking about yourself, Russia, and Remya. And I wish the best for both Russia and Ukraine in the upcoming days. And I think we can end our stream right now.
Thank you for inviting me.